Welcome to the World United. Welcome to the World United.
I would like to invite our two speakers, Craig and Gabriele Thomson, for an inter-panel discussion.
Right. Well, Nancy.
Hi, Dr. Craig Hassad. If you don't mind, can I read your bio again? Because maybe it was not live, so I will just read it again, if that is okay with you, and then we get started. So everyone knows how amazing you are. So about Dr. Craig Hassad, Dr. Craig Hassad, OAM is an associate professor at medicine at the Monash University since 1989, and he's a coordinator of mindfulness programs across Monash. Craig developed and integrated the world's first mindfulness-based
I think you're on mute, Nancy.
So Craig developed and integrated the world's first mindfulness-based healthy lifestyle course into the Monash medical curriculum. He has co-authored over 100 papers in peer-reviewed journals and is regularly invited to speak and run courses in Australia and overseas in health, education, government, and corporate contexts. Craig was the founding president of Meditation Australia, and he's a regular media commentator who's published 13 books and 14 book chapters and featured in documentaries such as The Connection and My Year of Living Mindfully. He co-authored the 2 free online mindfulness courses in collaboration with Monash University and FutureLearn. And these are rated among the leading online courses in the world. In 2019, Craig was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia, OAM, for services to medicine. So presenting Dr. Craig Hassad. So welcome to the panel, both of you, Gabriele Thomson and Dr. Craig. So my first question to you is to you, Dr. Hassad. So you presented an incredible amount of research on how mindfulness and meditation actually have very physically seen evidenced benefits. And I'm literally in awe. One of the questions coming up is people feel that they can be mindful when everything is peaceful, when they are sitting, when they wake up in the morning, thinking about mindfulness. But how do we extend that to the whole day? How can you be mindful when you're losing your mind?
I suppose you can be mindful of losing your mind in the sense of paying attention to what's happening in the present moment. So because we're mindful doesn't mean that we'll never have a moment of anger or anxiety or frustration or fear. So we are human and we experience the full gamut of emotions and so on. Now we might find if we become more mindful in our life that there's less anger and there's less fear, etc. But these things can arise certainly. But if we're mindful, we're able to observe them as they're arising. There's an awareness of the emotional reaction to something, an awareness of a physiological response. And if we're just on automatic pilot and not aware in the present moment, then our reactions without thinking and without any discernment, and we get very much controlled by those emotions. Whereas if we're more mindful, an emotion might arise like anger or fear, but there's an ability to stand a step or two back from it, to observe the reaction, the emotion, the physiological response. But that standing back from it, the observing of it, provides a little space, a little window of opportunity to make a conscious choice, to respond or not to respond, how to react. So in a sense, we're not so much trying to control the emotion through suppression, but we're learning not to be controlled by the emotion, by non-attachment to it. And so we might observe an agitated or distracted state of mind, but if we're able to stand back from it, we're not necessarily controlled by it. We might observe an angry reaction, but if we're able to stand back, we're not so controlled by it. And that gives us an opportunity to make a more conscious choice to respond more compassionately or with more forgiveness rather than vengeance, for example. So it does open up an ability to make wiser choices in our life. But being mindful doesn't mean I'm never going to have a moment of anxiety or fear again, at least not in my experience anyway. So because we are human, and and we're all very much a work in progress. I hope that helps a little bit, Nancy.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Craig. You're actually giving us the mantra of how to go from reaction to a response. Maybe we can't go there every time, but you're helping us, how to just step back, because here is a reaction to the situation that's happening. And then you step back and with the non-attachment, and maybe you will go into a response.
Yes, and you see, every day when we sit down to practice our meditation, and as we sit down to practice, the mind wanders off. Oh, we come back. Reactions and anger or frustration from the day arise. And so thoughts and feelings and reactions, sensations, comfortable, uncomfortable, are all coming and going into our awareness. But if we're able to observe those with less reactivity, with a little more compassion and gentleness, a little more ability to stand back from them, then as they arise in our day-to-day life, that awareness comes into the midst of a situation at work. When somebody says something and there's a reaction, there's an ability to stand back in that kind of mindful way. So the meditation underpins our ability to be mindful in the rest of our life, to live a more conscious life. And for children to learn those skills early on, rather than get into all the unhelpful habits that we as adults have tended to get into, for children to learn this early on is a great blessing.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. It's like you're listening to my second question, which was to Gabriele. Now, how does mindfulness look when you're teaching that to children? How does it look like?
Well, as in my speech, and hopefully it was heard, it was a bit distorted from my end, but I find young children that I work with at the age 4 or 5, they're naturally
mindful. That young? Wow.
So they know when to stop. They have an innate sense of wanting that sense of balance and equilibrium in their bodies, in their minds, in their souls. So if allowed to, children will naturally go maybe to a sensory activity which allows them to focus, because through our senses we find focus. So they might play with Play-Doh or finger paint, and you can see my excitement about that. and they're coming in the present moment naturally. And they will also, most children will also do that naturally. They might go outside and touch the ground. They might take their shoes off, and being in nature, anyone who has children or has worked with children, they become calmer. They just become calmer. So children naturally know how to be mindful if allowed to be. And I find also, adding to you, Dr. Craig, that when we allow ourselves to become calmer and take a moment and identify the emotion first of all that's going on, because often people don't even know what's going on, identify where in the body it sits. And children are wonderful at that, because they're usually non-verbal when they're at a younger age, but they will tell you they have a sore tummy or their head hurts. They know where the emotion sits, and that's all that's needed to identify it. So, and from then, what I wanted to add is, by being able to step back, we can actually allow an element of non-judgment to come in, and also seeing the situation from the perspective of someone else. So we, like you said, the empathy, the understanding. It's not just a turmoil that I feel inside, but it is like, whoa, when I step back, what is going on for someone else, which may also influence not just the level of my emotion, but my decision making, and hopefully a more positive one.
Yes, I think that's a really important part of being present, is the awareness of others and how they're feeling and how we're interacting with that. Because when we're off in our own little world, in our own heads and disconnected, then compassion and empathy for others is not very possible at all.
There's no room for it, is there?
No. And I think that's that point about children, in a sense, are naturally mindful, naturally present. We weren't born distracted and worried. That's a habit we get into pretty early in life. And so in a manner of speaking, children learn how to be unmindful by being around unmindful adults. And then we have to get out of the habit, perhaps later on in life, but we can help children to maintain that natural sense of awareness and presence, but with the maturity of an adult, of course, as they grow up.
Yeah, the modeling is important. A bit of pressure on us adults here, but yeah, children model what we do, not what we say. So yeah.
I so completely resonate with what you both are saying, because as a mom, I sometimes see my children, and also as an educator, I see kids, who come that I am hurting. Like if they're upset, they will point to their heart, even as they're expressing it, because they are able to feel it in their heart. Or, like there is always, like I have seen kids in very, very young, at 3 years old or something, when they feel disturbed, they start to hum because they naturally know it soothes. Like no one has really taught them meditation, but so I can hear what you're saying, because I've seen them hum or soothe themselves by going backwards or forwards. They seem to have this inherent understanding of what they should do, which leads me to my next question is, Gabriele, what is something that parents, because you've talked a lot about, work about being with kids, how that helps keep your own playfulness and inner child alive. So I would like to ask you that, what do parents and educators need to learn from children? Because even when you're saying that, I can see how magical you sound and how infectious that is. So what do parents need to learn from their kids? And what is the most important thing that they can teach their kids? So what do parents need to learn from kids, and what do they need to teach kids?
Well, I would say, because children are individuals, like often parents, I find, like, you visit someone, they have a 5-year-old child and you have a 5-year-old child, they say, well, go off and play. Well, no, they are individuals. So as parents or any adult, I feel it's really important to observe your child and get to know them, get to know who they are, the strong personalities that they come with, and just attune to your child. And if it's possible, I'm an all promoter for letting children be in the flow, and that goes for any age. And of course, we all have places to be, but to kind of work around the flow of the child, and learn from their children, say what works for you. Not saying, well, we're all doing this now and this is how it works. To an extent, of course, I'm a parent, there's lots of limits, you got to juggle these, but what children, like I always like the example, parents, being overprotective. You put your jumper on because it's cold. The child knows whether they're cold or not. And if they get cold outside, they just learn by consequence because they don't have a jumper on, so they get one, so let the child be. Now, as far as parents go, and I mentioned that before, and Dr. Craig did too, is that the modeling. The children model us, like they model us all along, even through our teenagehood, and they pick up our values, our ways of doing and being. So the best thing anyone could do for themselves, but also as a parent, is to practice mindfulness, to be mindful in their lives. And it doesn't always happen. Of course it doesn't, but you can always bring yourself back. And I would like to see all parents meditate. Absolutely. The children, the young children pick it up, and that's what sort of where my passion is. When they're 4 and 5 and even a little bit younger, they have it. it's there for most children. So let's support that as parents, as educators, as the world, you know. Let's keep that going, that momentum in education.
If I could just share a little bit on that question as well, because I think it's a really
Yes,
important.
please.
Give 3 little examples given by parents in mindfulness courses I was running. And one parent was trying to get out the door in the morning, making the lunches, and the child was coming up, 5-year-old say, and had just been drawing something, and mummy, look, and so holding up the drawing, and yes, that's lovely. Now go and put on your shoes. I've got to get out of the house. Mummy, look, I am looking. Yeah, lovely, beautiful. Now put your shoes on. And mummy, look, and all of a sudden, and she was doing a mindfulness course, this mother, and all of a sudden she had a moment of awareness. Oh, she turned her head, but she didn't actually look. The child knew that the parent was totally distracted, and in a sense, the child being in the present moment was teaching the parent to actually pay attention. Could see that the parent wasn't looking, even when they thought they were. And all of a sudden, she dropped her agenda. She sat down with the child, looked at the drawing, and these were her words. She said, it was a jewel in my morning, this little jewel, this little beautiful moment of sharing. And the child was happy, and she was happy. She was calmer. The mother was calmer. But she said when she spoke with a different voice, and from a calmer place, a more present place. And so one other example was a parent down at the beach trying to be mindful, and trying to listen to the waves and now see. And then she was kind of getting into knots, trying to be mindful. Am I mindful? What should I be experiencing being mindful on the beach? And all of a sudden, again, about a 5-year-old comes up with a spade and a bucket, wants to start playing and building sand. So all of a sudden, she stopped trying to be mindful and just engaged with her son. And next thing, they're building sand castles and playing on the beach and playing pirates. And after about half an hour of that, she sat down her towel. And all of a sudden, she realized that she'd been mindful for the last half an hour, just with the spontaneity and the immediacy and the presence of the child as well. One other example to share was, again, a mother, she was saying, I was trying to get out and get somewhere and get into the car, and she had her child's hand, and she's trying to get to the car, and she's feeling this sort of resistance tugging on her hand, and she's, oh, come on, we've got to go. And all of a sudden she has a mindful moment. Oh, wait a second. She stops, she turns around and sees the child transfixed by these beautiful red flowers. And all of a sudden she just realized, wait a sec, drop having to be somewhere else and be here now. And so they had this moment of just together looking at the beauty of these flowers. So a child can teach about attention. They can teach about spontaneity and being in the flow. They can teach about appreciation of beauty, I think, because they're all natural parts of being present. And of course, there's lots that children need to learn from adults as well. But precisely, if we're modeling distraction, inattention, etc., making simple things complicated, children pick that up very early. Yeah.
And if I may add to that, like often parents,
yes,
they need to spend more quality time with their child. And that's adding on to what you just said, is often, I mean, and there's a lot of parents who do differently, but often parents feel like on the weekend, I have 2 hours and I go bike riding with you, or I go to the playground with you. Those moments, that is the ultimate quality time children crave and parents can have. Those moments when they show the picture and say, have a look at it now. And because often parents think, oh no, this will take half an hour and I haven't got half an hour. No, it doesn't take half an hour. It is 2 minutes of quality mindful time that will so strengthen a connection between you and your child at any age. And I speak teenagers too. When they want to talk, they don't often want to talk long because they often become nonverbal for a little while, but they want the moment with you, and I like that, that the appreciation and the gratitude flows from that, and it opens everyone's heart. So, yeah.
The screens are so much getting in the way of that authentic connection. just spending time being physically in the same place with somebody, like a parent and a child, that's not quality time, especially if that time everybody's face is buried in the screen. And so it's actual engagement, real connection. That's the quality time. And children are very often satisfied, so much more satisfied with just those moments of real engagement, rather than just time of being physically in the same room with somebody while everybody's on their iPad. That's unfortunately too much of modern life these days.
Yes. So for a lot of parents who are watching this, and including for me, Dr. Craig and Gabrielle, you're really showing us the mirror. When you shared, we can all see ourselves. I think, those memories are flashing by when we have done those exact same things. In fact, Dr. Craig, when you shared the first example, how many of us have been in that same exact situation? And we have done the same exact thing. And as Gabrielle said, you cannot schedule these moments. You have to take them as they come. Otherwise, you just miss that opportunity. You miss that door. So I literally had like goosebumps, Dr. Craig, when you were sharing that example of, the mom telling him to put the shoe, because we have our agenda and we are not in that present moment, but the kid is. And like Gabrielle said, we are thinking, what, when I finish all this and at the end of the day, I'm going to give him time, and we have missed. Yes. So I'm really, really grateful for you both to like hone it in. And I think this is going to stick to all of us. And, really seeing these kids and honoring them as souls, and not just as little kids who have to listen to us, but honoring them on a soul level. Dr. Craig, I had a question for you, because people seem very aware these days that mindfulness can help in relieving our daily stresses and anxieties. Like, this seems to be it has come into our everyday consciousness. But can you share a little bit about maybe what could be the long-term implications of mindfulness, emotionally, physically, psychologically, or even anti-aging? Like, what are the other benefits of mindfulness? I'm hoping that this will inspire all of us to start mindfulness right now.
Well, if I could say, the cost of a distracted mind, a worried, inattentive, ruminating mind, the cost of that is significant. And not just in terms of our mental health and well-being, but in terms of errors, car accidents, wasted time, miscommunication, but also physical health effects of activating this stress response again and again and again when we don't need it. So we might worry about an upcoming event 1,000 times before it even happens, and activate the stress response 1,000 times when it's not actually required. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and we're awake and we're getting stressed about things in life, etc. And just consider what is going on in the present moment at 3 in the morning. Your head's on a soft pillow, you're lying on a soft mattress, you've got some warm blankets or a doona on you, and you're in a very quiet place. Life cannot possibly get any more comfortable than that. So there's present moment reality, but mentally we're somewhere else, or reliving things from the past again and again. So that cost of being unmindful is enormous. So when we consider the benefits of mindfulness, it does the opposite of all of that. So obviously the mental health benefits. So every time we get on that train of thought to negativity and worry and self-criticism and rumination, we just notice, oh, there I am on that train of thought again. We just step off the train back into the present moment. Or just brooding on anger, step off the. So there's the mental health benefits. We drive more safely. We communicate more meaningfully. We make less errors. We don't have to read something 4 times because we didn't take it in the first time, because we pay attention. So we save a massive amount of time. But from a physical health point of view, as I just hinted at, and I didn't have long to go into it, but the physical health effects of chronic stress are very significant. So we do the opposite. So the brain, so by about the age of 50, studies show that the brain is about 7.5 years younger on average for a person who practices this compared to somebody who doesn't. So the brain ages less quickly. which has big implications for when a person might get dementia, for example. The effects on our immunity. So there's negative impacts on our immunity and resistance when we're very stressed and so on. Mindfulness reduces inflammation, but it stimulates healthy immunity. So we've got more resistance. If we get, we're less likely to get sick. If we do, we're less likely to be more severely ill and recover more quickly. I mentioned about aging. So studies show that people who practice mindfulness are aging slower, and not just in the brain, like I mentioned, but actually down to the DNA of the cells, right? So it actually slows down the aging process, which is getting to be a more and more attractive option for myself all the time, right? So that's more attractive, you know. So, I mean, I could go on with other effects, but relationship-wise, more empathy and compassion, and doesn't the world need a lot of that at the moment? And so the benefits of mindfulness are many and varied. And I think that there are so many different benefits because it's this one thing that underpins everything else that's important in life. If we get the awareness bit right, then it makes other things more possible. It'd be like stepping into a room that's very dark and you've got a whole lot of things you need to do in that room. And we're walking around stumbling over things in the dark and so on. You'd say, well, what's the first thing you need to do? Turn on the light. So to make anything possible, you just turn on the light. So the light is like the awareness, and it illuminates everything else, making things understandable, making things possible. And so it's like this overarching capacity, which has all of these other benefits. So that's perhaps the way I think about it, is just turning on the light. If we get that right, everything else is a piece of cake as far as I can see.
Dr. Craig, this is so enlightening, literally, because I am in awe by the far-reaching consequences it has, like even on our DNA structure, because all this time, you know, I've been thinking that it is mostly preventative, but once you have something you can't really do, but you're saying that it can even change, it can change you at a DNA level, it can change you at a brain level. It's just, I mean, there is no reason not to get this started. It's just.
Well, yes. And you see, and it doesn't mean, you know, if we've got cancer, for example, and we start practicing meditation, it's all going to go away. Right. You know, but what we can do is we can start to help the body's resistance to do what it needs to do. So whether we change the course of an illness, or whether we slow down the progression of an illness, or at very least our capacity to cope with an illness.
Yes, yes.
Improve our immunity. So if we get a serious infection, that we may still get some sickness from it, but far less severely ill. So it can alter a whole range of things, but it's not like life is going to go away.
Right,
it's
right.
Like we practice mindfulness and we will never experience physical pain. We might, but we may well cope with it with a whole lot less suffering than otherwise would have happened if we're less mindful and constantly worrying and ruminating and getting reactive emotionally to the physical discomfort. So it really changes things on quite a significant level, but life is still going to happen, mindful or not, but our way of being within that can be very, very different.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. It does put it in perspective, you know, the pain might just happen, but, you know, it might definitely lessen the suffering, you know. We need not suffer as much. And I think that is an important, how we cope seems such an important part of our healing. So thank you, Dr. Craig. Gabriele, I would love to hear if you have seen the benefits of mindfulness in behaviors. You know, sometimes, you know, we all talk about the terrible twos, and some people say that the terrible twos continue way beyond the twos, and they're like at 6 also we are living the terrible twos, and our kid has gotten very stubborn and rebellious, even though he's not a teenager. It's like you're going from terrible twos to a teenagers who have. So how does mindfulness help in behaviors? Or have you seen what is your take on that? Like, have you seen it improve behaviors once the behaviors have already come in?
Well, I find, I mean, 2-year-olds are a different kettle of fish, so to speak. There's a lot of emotion on in them. But I feel also with 2-year-olds or teenagers, once the young people, I'll call them, have a sense of attunement to self and have an inner connection to themselves. And with that, if we practice mindfulness with them, we have the connection with them. So these special moments do happen. Then I find the children of any age, they value connection out in the world. So they will actually look for real connections. They're not happy with, they will be online, of course they will. That's their, life. But they value the true connection with people, which is an amazing thing, because a lot of young people these days only value the connection through Facebook and Instagram and who knows what. And that's not real. That's not realistic. And that's constantly reinforced and needs to be reinforced all the time. Well, if they're attuned to themselves and know themselves really well, have the inner connection, the connection with a greater awareness and with the family members, there's a sense of calm and peace, even in teenagers. And I've seen that myself, so. And just something I wanted to add is sort of this, in my many years with grandmother Parisha, I've sort of learned that, you can meditate every morning or on Saturdays or whenever it fits, but mindfulness is all day. It's a life skill. It's an essential life skill that has to move through every day. And I find to be gentle there with everyone, with the children especially, and with the adults, in saying, whoops, there's 2 hours and I haven't even stopped to think and be aware. It's okay. It's okay. We are humans after all. Just say, I'm going to be aware now, and get on with it, and you're waiting in a queue. Don't, your mind goes off and you say, oh, I'm waiting and they're late. If your children model that, they will think the same way. But you could say, waiting doesn't exist for me. I'm just going to be mindful. There's a tree. That woman wears a nice red jumper. You can transform situations. So, yeah, I'm not sure that I went off track here, but I'm pretty excited.
Gabriele, I can really hear your compassion and the wisdom of, grandma flowing through this space. I think we can feel what you're saying. I think we are going to that place of mindfulness as you speak.
It is. Look, it's an attunement to self and attunement to others, and even young children can learn that. If I'm attuned to my 2-year-old who throws a tantrum in the supermarket, which is quite stressful for myself, and I attune myself to myself while everyone is watching and think what a bad mother I am, at least I can move with it. If I get stressed, the child is stressed, this is not going to work in any way, Yeah.
Escalate the stress.
And you flip your lid really quickly because it's just too much. But if you can stay here and say, he's throwing a tantrum because there's a lot going on for him right now, and what the other thing does not matter so much, you might stand it.
I hear you. Anger seems to be the fastest escalator in the whole world, faster than anything technology has come up with.
I sometimes like to say dealing with a 2-year-old tantrum in a supermarket is like black belt mindfulness. Like that's for the faint-hearted, to be able to be accepting and open and non-reactive in a situation like that. It's really not that easy.
Just wanted to add that between each other in relationships is really important to model to children as well of any age. Is like, how do we connect? If you have a partner in your life, how do you connect? How do you stop? Do you escalate very quickly? Because we're often triggered. That's what happens in relationship. Have you got that window of tolerance where you can step back and say, I'm not gonna crawl into myself or get really angry now and storm out the door, or whatever, be verbally abusive, to be able to contain that. And that's amazing modeling, like most important modeling for children.
Some studies that have looked at training mindfulness in early primary school, but training the teachers, when they actually look at the behavior of the children's a whole lot better, less reactive and angry and so on. But that's training the teachers, because again, coming back to this point, when the teacher is mindful rather than unmindful, is making conscious decisions rather than automatic pilot ones, then that the children picked it up very, very quickly. And
so we need to take responsibility of that situation even more as adults.
Yeah, having worked in early childhood for many, many years, you have to be so aware of what you do. They watch you with eagle's eyes, and sometimes they copy what you do and you go, whoo. And you might have noticed that children too, those of you who have children,
Yes.
your child will do something and you go, where's that from? Oh, that behavior stems from me. Okay. Adjustment needed.
I think one of the things, you know, when we're more mindful and we're more aware, we notice things more. And that includes noticing our own reactions and anger and frustrations and fears and so on. So we sometimes observe things in ourselves that we don't always like. And one of the most unhelpful trains of thought that we can get on is to then get on a train of thought of self-criticism. You know, if we can just be happy with the moment of noticing and the moment of conscious choice, and that could be noticing ourselves overreacting to something, getting angry about something. If we can just notice that, but notice it in a mindful way, which means with some self-compassion. You know, it's just like, oh, human being having a human moment. Look, it's that interesting. My child knows where my buttons are and they're pressing them. They're very good at pressing them. And here am I waving my legs around and it's like on automatic pilot. Isn't that interesting? So if we can notice that with a little bit of compassion and kindness, then there may still be a response required, but it comes from a different place. If we notice something, I can remember one time a mother with a baby, and the mother, you know, she was a trained psychologist herself, but middle of the night, breastfeeding, you know, and she was just getting angry and irritated, you know, waking up, and I got things, you know, and all of a sudden she was aware of what was going on in her mind, of resenting the fact that she had to be up in the middle of the night again breastfeeding. And all of a sudden she noticed the resentment and she remembered being mindful, and she just really connected, just really present with her baby. And she said just the feeling and sensation, all of a sudden there was this overwhelming sense of love that arose just as a natural part of being in the present moment. So the resentment just went, but the love arrived, you know, just sort of was there as the natural thing when it was uncovered in a sense. But she said, and this was an important thing, what happened moments later was this thought came in, what a terrible mother I am for resenting breastfeeding my baby in the middle of the night. How terrible. And that train of thought, you know, it's like being mindful. It's like, whoa, it's interesting. Let that train of thought come and go. Just stay on the platform. Just stay in the moment. Because if we're not, it's very easy as an adult, as anybody, to get on those trains of thought of criticizing the things that come to our awareness when we're mindful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the judgment like of self can be just as harsh, or not even harsher than of often others. You know, like, you know, we have a tendency to judge the world around us. So that's mindfulness, is learning about not judging. But also we're the harshest critics of ourselves often. And yeah, self-compassion and kindness is just the beginning and the end, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't mean ignoring what's been noticed. It means, by all means, learning from it. But if we can teach children to cultivate that kind of self-compassion when we make mistakes, etc., and to cultivate that compassion for others, then that's a really important thing to learn, I think, early in life.
Thank you, both of you. I have a final question for both of you. As you have gone on this journey of mindfulness and working with so many people on this journey, what is this one piece of advice or wisdom which you like to pass on to all our audience? You have been flowing with wisdom, delivered with so much compassion, but is there any final advice you would like to give to our audience?
I would say that perhaps the potential for mindfulness is more than just using time more efficiently or coping better with pain, etc. I think ultimately it can teach us to know ourselves better. And I don't mean to know our particular preferences and so on better, to actually the core of our being. So that ultimately it's about transcending all of the you know, the ups and downs of life and so on, and finding actually something that's much more enduring and central to our being. So it can teach us that. If we learn that, then everything else is experienced in life as a bit of a rich and interesting play, but we're not so lost and caught up in the play, perhaps.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Craig. Gabriele?
And to my mind comes is that mindfulness is an essential life skill, and I would always put it on par with eating and drinking. You know that. No, I do put it on par. Like it's just so essential to practice, and like Dr. Craig said in presented earlier, it's like our neuron pathways change. You know, if you haven't practiced mindfulness throughout your day much, keep doing it. It will become easier. And like you said too, Dr. Craig, it's eventually having that place of peace inside that you can access, especially in the times we're going through. And life will always happen. There's always things that are out of our control. You know, life will always happen. That's just what life does. But to be able to access that place of peace inside, you know, is just magic, absolute magic.
It is absolute magic being here with you, Gabriele and Dr. Craig. As a token of our deep appreciation, we would like to share a token. Can I ask the technical team to present it, please?
That's a mindful moment, isn't it?
There is mindfulness happening all the way from you all in, you both in Australia to San Diego in America and India on the way. So it is a mindful moment, and they perhaps, yes. I think the mindfulness worked. I think that little moment of prayer worked, Gabriele.
Children do not need spiritual awakening. From my experience, they are right awake.
Hello?
For many years,
Yes,
I had the
yes, Linga, you're by
Yeah,
mistake.
is the video
as
clear?
an early childhood educator,
Yeah,
spent my days with 4 to 5-year-old
I think you're supposed to give that
It has
certificate.
been a privilege to be on a journey of learning and playing with them, and exploration and growth happened to me. I would like to take you on a journey of spirituality and connectedness through the eyes of young children.
So this is the certificate, digital certificate. So the same certificate is going to be shared via email also, electronic.
Thank you so much, Gabriele Thomson, for being with us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah. And this is the certificate for the breakfast.
Yes.
So thank you very much. So these digital certificates will be shared via email also.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. So yes, man, Shiji. So anything to be done from my end, from the admin side?
Would you post the certificate for Dr. Craig also? Dr. Craig?
Craig, right?
Yes.
Craig is.
Dr. Craig Hassad?
Yes. One.
Thank you so much, Dr. Craig Hassad, for being a speaker at the World Parliament of Spirituality, Australia. This is our first day in Australia, and really grateful to both of you for standing by as we try to bring this online for the first time. Really working from many different continents here. Deeply grateful for your words of wisdom. I think, even through all the technical difficulties, the words of wisdom from both of you are going to stay with all of us. Thank you so much. And with this, I would like to end the session. Thank you. Deep gratitude.
Thank you, Mansi.
So, Isman, Shiji, so I think,
Yes.
so do we have any other sessions for the day? Or we are done?
No, could you please, for this track we are done. Can you please?
Okay, so what is required from my end apart from this?
Can you just, can you please stop the live now?
Okay, sure. Okay, yeah, live. So we have stopped the live.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gabriel. Gabriel, we are not live anymore. Thank you. You're muted. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Mansi. You're just beautiful as moderator. You're just so sparkly and bright. And
thank you, Gabriel. I'm so sorry for all the difficulties. There are some things, and thank you for just going along with it. And
well, I hope
really.
I hope that my recording played okay, because I couldn't hear it.
We will. I think in YouTube they might they will, even if it didn't play properly, they'll be able to insert because they have the actual recording. So
yeah,
I will make sure.
Yeah, good.
Yes, I will make sure. I will put in a word that gets rectified, because we would want. And I'm really sorry. We were at the inauguration. We thought we were supposed to be there until, so.
No, all good. Much love.
Thank you so much. Love you, Gabriel.